Okay, so try to make this a quick one. This is something that's been popping into my mind once in a while, and it always gets me riled. And I think it's a good example of it'll sort of be a two birds, one stone thing. It'll give you a good example of media misleading people, being used to mislead people, and also the pedophilic, incestuous implications in some mythologies that lend themselves to this cult's belief system. Okay? So, this new, well, it's fairly new, I guess, this series, it's a series of books, much like the Harry Potter series, and it also has some movies that have come out based on the books. I believe the movies have been released by 20th Century Fox, and I've heard they're working on something with Disney Plus. And the books are written by a guy named Rick Riordan, Riordan, I believe. Just look it up. It's called, the title of the series is called Percy Jackson. And I believe it's also called, the book might be called like The Lightning Thief. But look up Percy Jackson, Percy, and then Jackson, spelled exactly the way it's spelled. It sounds. Jackson. So, they're pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, giving all of you guys the finger with that story. I mean, there's something to be said for artistic license, but come on, it's so... For anybody who has read and loves Greek mythology, I picked up my first book on Greek myths when I was in the 6th grade. And I was just entranced with it. I was like, what is up with these stories? These are cray cray. Did parents really tell their kids these stories at bedtime? And I've just been sort of drawn to them ever since. And most mythologies and religion stuff, reading them, studying them academically, trying to figure them out. Like, what is going on here? What were they thinking with these stories? So for anybody, though, who's a fan of Greek mythology, they must be writhing, just seething when they see Percy Jackson, because it's like, are you kidding me? Are you just basically, you think I'm an infant in kindergarten? You're giving me the finger, aren't you? Yep. Big old freaking finger in my face. Why? Because it's literally right there in the name. So, quick, brief, like a little bit of background into the story. Obviously, the main character is a boy named Percy Jackson. And he's supposedly, in the story, he's the son of the Greek god Poseidon, who's the god of the sea. And a mortal woman. That's who he is in the story. And so he's a demigod, and he's a hero the way, Perseus, he's based on the Greek hero Perseus. My cat is named after. So I know this story pretty well. I need to brush up on the names, because I don't remember, like, the queen's name and such. So, it's right there in the name that is totally inaccurate. Anybody who loves Greek mythology and knows the story of Perseus and Andromeda, it was the princess that he saves. He's the hero who saves the princess. Obviously, they usually do. So, think about it. So Perseus was never, and Percy Jackson shouldn't have been either, I guess. If he's based on Perseus, he clearly is. Perseus was never the son of Poseidon, and it's right there in his frickin' name. Perseus. Perseus. Zeus. Per meaning of. Of Zeus. He's a freaking son of Zeus, you idiots! It means the son of Poseidon. Please tell me that's going to be the twist ending. That, like, at the end of all of the freaking saga, he finds out, no, you're not the son of Poseidon. That lame-o. He's not the king of the gods. You're the son of Zeus. Like, please tell me that's going to be the twist ending. Please. Like, they're misleading all of you into completely not even knowing the true story, which means, like, they're just playing around with it so much that there's a very good chance you're going to lose the meaning, the true meanings that are meant to be relayed in the story, the lessons. Like, they're messing with it so badly that, like, they're not even adhering to the very name of the hero. I mean, I get that the hero in this specific story is Percy, but come on. Perseus. And the actual story is, and so here's the pedophilic incestuous part. The actual story is that Zeus, you have to go back a few generations before Perseus. Zeus got together with, and he got together with a lot of chicks. He got together with this one lady named Io. Io. Spelled exactly the way it sounds. Just an I and an O. Lots of layered meanings to that name. He got together with Io, she's typically seen as being either like a minor goddess or a nymph of some sort. So not totally mortal. I don't think I've ever read this story where she was just a mortal. So, Zeus did what he does and put a baby in her, and from that union came a lineage. And a member in that lineage, a descendant of Zeus and Io, was Perseus's mother. She was a queen. She didn't much care for her husband. And Zeus fancied her too. And came down and visited her one night in her marital bed. And that's how we got Perseus. Zeus essentially had a union with his great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter. I don't know how many generations went by between his impregnating Io and then impregnating one of the descendants of he and Io. And that's the name I don't remember, was the queen who birthed Perseus. I remember the queen, Andromeda's mother, Cassiopeia. But for some reason, I never remember Perseus' mother's name. And that's funny because my cat, my little fur baby, his name is Perseus, and I'm his mommy. I should look the name up again. But yeah, and you'll see references to a lot of Greek mythology and stuff when it comes to this cult and pedophile networks in general. And I'm going to do a video very soon breaking down some of the most well-known pedophile symbols that have been released by the FBI for the layered meanings that I have seen in them and that I think that they reference that have to do with child abuse. And it has no small connection to Greek mythology, some of them. So, yeah, I just thought I'd put that one out there as a little, good, I'm not even at 10 minutes yet, as just a little example, one little example that comes to mind once in a while, I think of because of my cat. It's like, Percy Jackson, what the F are they doing? They're effing with us. They're fucking with us. They really are. And your kids. Your kids love that show, don't they? And books and everything, like, and they're not even putting together Perseus. Come on, guys. They're giving you the finger. It's right in your freaking face. I mean, I don't know. I tried talking it up to artistic license, but why did he have to make him the son of Poseidon? Why? Why couldn't the story work just as easily if he's the son of Zeus, like he's supposed to be in the actual stories? Think about that. I haven't actually read the books. I saw one of the movies, the first movie. I saw that whole thing the whole way through. Because I was like, no, I can't. I love Greek mythology stuff. So when I saw like, oh, this is definitely based on the Perseus myth, I was like, I'm definitely gonna watch this. And as soon as I realized they were saying he's the son of Poseidon, which they established that pretty early on in the movie, I was like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. Nuh-uh. No, now I have to see how much of this freaking movie is fucking inaccurate. And I just sat there and seethed through the movie like, this is bullshit. But so yeah, for that reason, I haven't even bothered to read the books, nor do I really have the time to be honest. I'm busy reading grown-up books, like psych books, thinking about the psychology of pedophiles and serial killers and such. I don't have time to read yet another hero's journey. I get the point. Thank you. I really get the point. We're gonna make another video about that one. Should I just turn this video into that video? Let's do it, because it's gonna get into another Greek myth, which is the Odyssey with Odysseus, and I'm gonna make a little reference to Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Let's do it. The point of those two stories, which by the way, they're both hero's journeys in a way. I read both of those, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance and the Odyssey in high school. The point of both of those stories is not really the hero's journey. I mean, you might be able to consider it part of the point, but you could also say it's not the destination. What's the destination in those stories? The real point. So, the Odyssey, Odysseus, he's spends like 20 years away from home. He leaves when his wife's pregnant. He's never seen his son. And the first 10 years is at war with Troy. And the next 10 years is wandering around the Mediterranean, getting waylaid in all these like crazy ass places, battling monsters, cyclopses, and like shacking up with whore witches. Why didn't Odysseus just go, you know what, F it, I'm gonna stay here with Circe. Just eat grapes all day. What was he trying to get back to? What was motivating him, pushing him on through the whole hero's journey? What made him overcome the Cyclops and leave behind the hoe bag on her little sex island, where she would use men and then turn them into. That was Circe, right? I got a bit confused because there were like 2 lady islands that he went to. It's been a while since I read that story. I believe it was Circe though. She was the witch that turned men into animals based on their character. So she was going to turn, when she was done, she informed Odysseus that, once you and I have spent a life together and you get old and gray and we were done shacking up and stuff, before you die, I'm going to turn you into a fox because you are so clever. And that's why Athena loved Odysseus. That's why she was his patron. First of all, he was from Ithaca, and Ithaca honored Athena. Athena was like their patron goddess. But also, Athena loved Odysseus the most. Like, he was her favorite mortal because he was the most clever man. So, but he wasn't the point, actually. Well, he wasn't the destination, the point in that he wasn't the destination. You could say part of the point was his hero's journey, but the real point was his wife, Penelope. He was trying to get home to his wife, and you can't say Ithaca, not his home. I mean, you could say it in a way. It's his home, mom calling him home, his motherland. But it wasn't his son, which would be like a representation of his little pinky dick. Like that's sort of another, like an extension. Like a lot of dudes will just see their children as extensions of themselves, their sons as being like carbon copies of themselves, how they put themselves into the future. Essentially trying to make a copy of themselves into the future. It's like, that's not fair. Your kid's their own person, They're not you. It's not his son. His son was not the first person he tried to go see, and he could have easily asked around where's the prince or whatever. And he wasn't kissing the land, his island that he was the king of. The first person he went to see was his wife, the good woman, the good mother, who held down the fort and raised his son for him and kept all the pretender frauds at bay. She didn't go on a full-ass hero's journey. She stayed home and took care of her responsibilities to her child and held down the fort for her husband, but also very likely for her son, because if she'd remarried, that dude would have probably tried to take everything from her son, from the previous father. Her son might have wound up murdered or disinherited or something. He would have gotten his rightful inheritance. So she tried to stave off the suitors, hoping, any day now he's going to come back. And to her credit, she did it for 20 years. Until he came back and, mopped the floor up with them. So she was the point. And here's the other layered meaning. The mother, remember, and the mother stands for empathy and union. And empathy is why it boils down at the end of all. Empathy is one of the most important things. You see this in Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which, by the way, I do not suggest. F you, Robert Persig. That was such a waste of my effing time, except for the part about gumption. I appreciated that. That was useful. But we needed that thick-ass book, really. Really. It just lumbered on and on and on and on just to get to the point at the end being essentially empathy. Oh, thanks. Some shit I learned when I was fucking 4 years old. Really? You just stole so much of my life. I wanted to burn that book. I didn't. I just threw it across the room. Are you kidding me? We went through this whole meandering freaking talking about this. The main character is genius. Oh, the genius just figured out when he's freaking 40 years old that his son, who's riding on a motorcycle behind him, they're both riding on the motorcycle together, but they're on a journey. They're riding a motorcycle. I don't remember if it was across the country, but on a long ride, they're going together, I guess, bonding time, camping, whatever. So the whole book is being told sort of by this man, this father, in his mind in a way, as he's riding on this motorcycle with his son riding motorcycle shotgun, behind him. And the whole book boils down to, and he talks about having a nervous breakdown and sitting in a corner of a room, naked and peeing himself, and because he, conceptualized all things. I don't know. The part about gumption was useful. Read that part, but then the whole book essentially ends, from what I remember. Maybe I should reread it. I was so disappointed with it. Essentially ends with him realizing, his son behind him on the motorcycle. Oh my gosh, I have a nasty ass bruise. I don't even know how I got it. You bump into things a lot when you live in an RV. Something's up with my door. Something's stuck in the latch. So I've been trying to got out my tools and trying to take the whole latch off because I don't know what's stuck in there. I can't get it open. I've had to get in and out of the RV through the front driver's seat and let the cats in and out through the windows. Anyway, sorry. So the whole story, Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, ends with him realizing that his son is having a totally different experience than him, or mostly different experience than he is, because he's riding the motorcycle in the front and he's seeing this whole beautiful landscape and scenery. And just it's meditational for him, and he's thinking back to his life and kind of retelling it in his mind, and that's most of the book. But he realizes his son's having a shit time behind him because all his son can see is his back because he's got a younger son and he's a big dude. And his son's like holding on to him from behind, and all his son can really see is this big old broad gorilla shoulders. He can't see the beautiful landscape. Like, this is not the same experience for him. And that's how it roughly ends. He realizes, like, oh, for all my intelligence and genius, I didn't have the empathy to see that my son has a totally different experience than I do. And he's not me, and I'm not him. It ends the lesson in that whole freaking meandering, thick-ass book is empathy. There are a few little lessons along the way, like the gumption one. Like, that's useful, again. Like, how to maintain gumption in the face of a daunting, overwhelming task or project is useful. Read that part. But the rest is like, if you're a fully functional female, you learned that lesson when you were like in kindergarten at least, okay? So don't bother. It's for men. It's totally a man book. Which, by the way, is what women are supposed to be doing, I think. It's spending a lot more time at home with a lot more free time to think things through, like the hero's journey and what the point is and morals and ethics, because we need to raise the kids and imbue them with these understandings. How can we do that if we don't understand these effing things? And how can we understand these things if we don't have the time to freaking think about them? Because we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off doing men's work. Paying the bills for them. They can't do what we do. They can't. They think that the point is the hero's journey. Kind of is down here, but the ultimate point, the ultimate destination is mom. The good mother, we're going to get around to how, like, I'm going to get into more videos extending this, essentially, explaining how I think that this cult, or like a lot of dudes, even not in this cult, would be, if they could get as far as to look around and figure out the basic formula, or a lot of the basic formula, most of the basic formula of this existence and why it's here. You know, I'm getting into, like, I think it's a big recycling process or weeding out process and stuff. Yeah, and so a lot of dudes might be tempted to think that it's all here for their little D's. Like, it all just revolves around pinky dicks. Around, like, we're just here so that they can make copies of themselves into the future. And I think that that is a lesson being sent under the surface to, you know, within this cult's belief system, but also I think it's seeded into the main belief systems, too, of today. So this is why I think this is sort of a sickness being spread. And I don't know if it seems to be through several different veins, like it's being spread through language, belief systems that keep being recycled, and sort of the concepts, they're just being recycled through our belief systems, and they're, if you break them down for the subconscious psychological messages they're sending, they're really unhealthy. Not all of them, but some. The point is not the hero's journey. It is if you understand that it's the tool to get to the point, to get home, to prove you get, like, you're worthy of going home back to the good woman, the good mother. The hero's journey is meant to be for men to prove themselves worthy. It's not for women. Women have inherent value biologically. They have to prove their value. They're the ones with the degenerating Y chromosome. We have the XX chromosome. It does not degenerate from generation to generation. So biologically, we're more valuable than they are. We don't have to prove ourselves. In that way, we have to prove ourselves in the way that we understand the meaning, because the mother represents meaning. And you can understand that just by thinking about how the two genders come at relationships. Women come at it from a place of meaningfulness, typically, and men come at it from a place of, I just want to fuck. don't they? They want like an endless carousel of girls, women that they can access, and they don't really want to get too deep into the relationship with them, do they? They want one foot out the door and one foot in the door at all times. They just want us to make them sandwiches and sit on their dicks and then shut up. There's not a lot of meaning in that. There's going to have to be some struggle. There's going to have to be some disagreements, some compromise. That's a real relationship, partnership, and family. That's meaningful. Not what they typically want. What we want is like, oh my gosh, we're gonna meet and we're gonna eat, he's gonna say he loves me, we're fall in love, and then we're gonna get married, and then we're gonna have a house and have babies, and we're gonna raise our babies, and then our babies are gonna have babies, and we're gonna grow old together watching them play and on our porch holding hands, and then we're gonna die in each other's arms, and it's gonna be so meaningful. That, you know, that's how it is. So meaning is ruled by the mother, not by the father, not by the child. It's by the mother. The child's too narcissistic to derive meaning, and the father, well, they both kind of are. And the father's too just like focused on seeding life to derive the meaning from that life. You understand? It's the woman's job to derive meaning. How can we do that if we're the ones on this hero's journey too? To a large degree, I think a big part of the female's job is to not just sit around. I don't agree with the whole like, oh, we're just supposed to sit in the drawing room and knit and don't jumble up our uteruses. No. I prefer sort of the model of the Spartan woman, which probably is much like how the Scythian women behaved, because it's very likely that the Scythians seeded the Spartan civilization and the Viking civilization, because they have very, very ridiculously similar funeral rites and rituals, which is one of the hardest things to change about a culture, civilization, if you, say, take them over and try to force them to change the names of their gods and prayers and such. Like, you'll change... so you don't get beheaded, you'll switch up the prayer you say over your meal, but it's a lot harder to get people to change how they bury grandma, because they want to send her off right, you know, like. So when you see three different civilizations, cultures with like almost identical burial, funeral rites and rituals, fair chance, good bet, that they are related in some way, like one probably branched off into another. So Scythians came first, but very, very likely, because they were very, very, very successful. They didn't die off. They just spread out and evolved into other cultures. That's how successful they were. They were around for thousands of years, and our country's only been around for a couple hundred. You think on that, and they had empires go to war with them, like straight up just start war with them all the time, thinking like, oh, these are just some dumbass little tribal peoples. And I'd like that land, and I've got a bigger army for sure, and didn't work out for them. Scythians were impressive. I'm gonna make like probably at least one video talking about how they modeled their civilization, because I think that it's more ideal for a lot of reasons. They actively designed their civilization in a way so that it would avoid becoming an empire, because they understood that empires are kind of the antithesis of humanity. Like, they will break down humanity until it doesn't exist anymore. So they tried to avoid at all costs creating an empire. They despised empires. Yeah, so, and they also did not value things like gold. They had it because it was a useful bartering tool, and they would take it from their enemies when the enemies would start shit with them, and they'd win, of course. But they absolutely did not value it over certain things like integrity and telling the truth, the substance of your word. If you lied to get like some gold and you admitted it to a Scythian, they would have probably spit in your face and thought that you're a dumb piece of shit, because you traded the integrity of your word, the substance of your the integrity of your character, the substance of your words. You traded that for a lump of shiny metal when you're a dumbass. is what the Scythians would have said to you. So that's what they valued. That's like a little sneak peek, but I'm going to get into more with the Scythian video. So yeah, when I read about their civilization, heard stuff. They have stuff on YouTube if you don't want to. I do enjoy just like sitting and listening to documentary type stuff because I can also organize things or clean at the same time. So, like, you don't have to just read. There's lots. I mean, there's so much endless amount of information on YouTube. Just be careful about the source and be careful about the accuracy of it. Because not everybody's telling you the truth. Some people will mislead you on purpose, and some people just, they think they're telling you the truth, but they're inaccurate. So just be careful. Because you're supposed to be responsible for what you know and what you don't know. I'm not perfect at this, but I do try. So that means you're not supposed to go around parroting things that you don't know for sure are true, which is why sometimes I add qualifiers into like what I'm saying. Like, I don't know for sure, but based on my research, it went this way. Because I try to keep myself accurate, and that kind of battles with this artistic side of me that just wants to jive talk, you know? So, yeah, the point of the Odyssey was not Odysseus or the hero's journey. Men, it's not so the point of life is not, is Penelope was the point. Now, she was the destination. Okay, the hero's journey is the tool to get to the destination, and thus, the hero is the tool to get to the destination. The destination is a mother. The D, little d, is the tool to make the mother, but also the representation of his little d, the child. They're both necessary to make the point, which is the mother. And this is the point in a beehive too. The queen exists to make more workers and more queens to carry on the hive. The point is not making those little D's like all a male honeybee can do. I used to keep a top bar beehive for about a year. It was given to me, and then before I moved, gave it to some people who were starting up a farm. Friends of mine, actually. I mentioned them. So I cared for a top bar beehive and did a bit of reading, studying into them for about a year. First year of COVID, actually, because I wasn't sure. That's when I was homesteading and building a greenhouse and stuff. I wasn't sure about what I was going to get. I was like, I don't know. I should probably make sure I can grow my own food at least, because things were starting to run out in the grocery stores. I just didn't know about what I was going to get. So I was like, and it'd probably be a good thing to have honey, my own kind of sweetener, sugar. So yeah, I started homesteading my rental. Built a whole greenhouse. And was studying bees for a bit. So the males in a beehive are next to useless. They're basically just there to impregnate one of the princesses. And that's it. Once they've done that, they can't do really anything else. They can't do any of like a lot of jobs need to be seen to in a hive to keep it going. A lot. Sanitation jobs, chefs who have to cook up, like prepare the honey, but then also royal chefs that have to prepare the royal honey for the queen. The queen's handmaidens, essentially, or handlers or keepers that have to keep her clean and well fed, and they kind of direct her around the hive to make sure she's laying her eggs where they need to go. There are a lot of jobs around a beehive, and they are all done by females. The only job that a male can do is impregnate one of the princesses. Yeah, and after that, he's useless, and then guess what happens to him? Curtains by his own sisters and female cousins and aunts. Because here's how life works, guys. We will not do all the work while you sit around and eat. Life has a way of getting rid of things that are superfluous and have served their purpose. So if I were you, I'd think about that the next time you feel like being lazy. I'm all for, you can sit, but like do something with your mind at least. Don't be lazy with your mind. You people just sit and turn your brains off and watch television all day. And you're not even thinking about what you're watching. You're just like fantasizing that you're Harry Potter, like, or the fairy princess or whatever. What are you doing with yourselves? At least get up and be active, clean while the television's on or something. I don't know. But if you're going to sit and be sedentary, at least you turn your brain on. Your brain actually uses up most of the energy in your body, more than any other organ, about 20% of the energy. So it takes a lot to think. Imagine how much energy I use up. I think a lot. So, yeah. No, I got a bit sidetracked. So we went to Percy Jackson, and then we went to, the Odyssey, the Odysseus. So the point is empathy, the point is the mother, the point is also fate and meaningfulness. Meaningfulness equals fate. Free will equals meaninglessness. You know, like, so you know that song, like, fate up against your will, through the thick and thin. He will wait until, it should be she will wait until you give yourself to him. Because the free will, I think, is more represented by the male aspect, the fallen son, the child. Boundaries is represented by the father. And then fate and meaningfulness is represented by the mother. And that's what it is at the very end. That's what it boils down to. And we have both. So for those of you who are like, we don't have free will, it's just fate, I'm just fated to do everything. And so like, then some people use that as an excuse. Like, not my fault, I don't have free will. It's not my fault I bash that dude in the head or whatever. Like, no, you have both actually. And this is, if you can understand, it's just a typical life. So your fate, first of all, it's just like, it could be like you're fated to do certain things, hit certain markers along the way. But your free will kicks in because you can choose. There's like infinite amount of ways you can get to these points that you're fated to get to. And this is just a typical life. You're fated to die eventually. All things are. We will all meet that end. How you get there should be entirely your choice. That's how you have free will, and you're a puppet of fate at the same time. But it might be more than that. It might be more than just you have this one end destination. It could also be there are certain things throughout your life you are destined to do. How you get to these certain mile markers and destinations, how you end up doing them, achieving them even, that's like very likely possibly all up to you. Like, you could do it in style, you could be a big whiner. I'm kind of a big whiner. Just kicking and screaming. No, I don't want to do it. Hate you. Leave me alone. I had my own plans. But you're gonna get there one way or another. So yes, you have both fate and free will. We are being acted upon by both of those, but at the end of it all, it's fate. It's not your free will. Your free will kicks in here and there, but your free will is not. It's sort of predetermined. So it suggests that there's an architect of sorts at the beginning of all this, an intelligence at the beginning of everything that must have already sort of planned it out. If the point of life, if the meaning of life is meaningfulness, there had to be meaning in the beginning to kick it off. You know, understand? Like, because like, why? You know, you have a point in mind for a game when you build the game, right? There's a meaning to the game. It's not just like ridiculous chaos. Every player for himself, do what thou wilt. there's a point. You're supposed to go through certain stages, wind through certain roads or whatever on the game, go around the board however many times and get to a point. There's meaning. There's a meaning. Meaningfulness implies fate. Meaning also implies, if the meaning of life is meaning, then it implies that there was something at the very beginning that had a meaning in mind. And this was all designed. Yeah. So it's not just chaos and randomness and inertia, which I think that this cult that I'm tracking, I think they're chaos worshippers. So they're worshippers of the fallen sun, of the male aspect, the phallus. Chaos, inertia. They're like little agents of mischief and evil. They're chaos agents. And I will be pointing some of them out to you that operate on YouTube and even have some books written and stuff. That's going to be a video coming for you, Dr. Schmucky. So, my eyebrow's all wonky. It keeps catching my attention. I think I slept on it weird. So yeah, the whole point is not the hero's journey. The hero's journey is the tool to get to the point. And the point is the new mother, the next mother. Like, it's like she's recreating herself. Okay? And because that's what's going to keep life going, not the male. Protogyny is only advisable under, oh my gosh, it's almost 41 minutes. Protogyny is only advisable in extreme emergencies, and we'll get into what protogyny and we learned this in Jurassic Park. It's when females turn into males, and almost every species does this, including the human species, only we do it in utero. Every male human being walking around today started off as a female in his mother. Started off very female looking, at least, and he had to develop his male bits. We all start off being, for the most part, female. And just some of us stay that way, and some of us kind of morph into this male creature thing, the other gender of our species. So, yeah, no, I don't remember. Oh, I got done this tangent. Yeah, sorry. So I should definitely cut it off here and then just pick up with another video will carry on with more points. But I do think that they're chaos worshippers, yeah, and I think that is a big part of what they do. And they do it sneakily, trickily. And one of the things they do is they lie by telling the truth, which I've mentioned in past videos, dealing with my mom too. It's not just this cult that engages in this stuff. I mean, this is a common tactic used by narcissists. Any dishonest person who's particularly clever can figure out the utility of lying by telling the truth and just framing the truth in such a way that it will be misleading. So we've all likely experienced this at some point, unless you're a child. So hopefully if you're a child, you haven't experienced that. I feel so bad. It's a terrible thing when people do that shit. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to cut it off before it hits 45 minutes. See ya.